Okay, so next news topic of the week. Preview embargoes lifted on Space Marine 2, which is a game that we're very, very excited about and have been since we saw the first trailer footage. We did actually get given that preview code. We may well do a preview, bigger preview next week, but we've all had a chance to sample it.
Mm-hmm.
And Oliver, I'm going to go to you first on this because, man, this is a good-looking game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the game looks just terrific overall. The thing that really stands out to me, just immediately looking at the footage, is that the materials are just on another level, like the way that light interacts with the different surfaces, like the painted metal, the stone, the glossy metal, the matte metal, there's a lot of metal, the limited cloth elements and the wood. And the indirect lighting looks very good as well. It has a bit of a heavy look, a bit of a grounded look. It's not totally realistic, but I think it looks really good. I'm not totally sure what they're doing here in terms of tech. The PC specs don't require a GPU that's RT capable. And there are some screen space artifacts that I did see around areas where geometry intersects. It looks like SSAO to me. So I think maybe it's pre-computed GI plus SSAO, I believe, possibly. If you just want to pick apart the visual techniques, yeah, it does look like there's some screen space stuff. There's also SSR in these shots, very obviously, SSR in the water. The shadows, I think, are probably shadow maps. So I don't know that we're necessarily seeing like any real headline next-gen technologies. I'm not too familiar with the Swarm engine, which is the engine this game is running on. It's also powering the World War Z game, World War Z for the Americans, and the upcoming John Carpenter action game. I can't remember what the name is, but that was
That's right. I forgot
shown
about
off.
that.
Yeah. So I don't know, but like if I was just looking at this without knowing that information, I think I'd probably guess Unreal, which I looked back in 2021. Alex did say it was probably Unreal, which I think is fitting because the materials just look very Unreal-like to me.
Alex, you've had a chance to play the preview code as well, right?
Yeah, I played it on the high-end 7800 X3D RTX 4090 PC that I have, and I just did it at 4K 60, 4K DLAA.
Oh, wow.
Yep, there is FSR2 and DLSS and TAA. And I do not know if you can turn them off. So if you don't like TAA, I'm not sure. Kind of bare bones menu. Otherwise, though, not too much. There is an SSR setting, Oliver, though, and an SSAO setting. And the lack of,
makes sense.
Like in the specs, like you said, I don't think there's any RT threaded through this game. I think for me, when I loaded it up, like one, I loved the material quality, like you were just describing there. Very good. Very consistent, super high resolution textures as well too on everything. It seems like it was authored with like a very consistent level of per pixel detail across the entire environment. So there wasn't like weirdly stretched textures anywhere. It seems all very tiled, but in a good way. And I thought that really impressed me. The other thing that I think separates it from a like last gen UE4 outing or something like that is just the sheer amount of stuff going on.
Yes.
Any one scene has hundreds of animating characters in it usually. And I'm not just talking about the enemies. There's a lot of allied, like Imperial Guardsmen walking around, or even like servitors. Like if you know anything about Warhammer 40K, it's like a lot of really cool details that are in universe, and they keep hundreds of them scattered across the screen, usually doing background stuff like fighting or milling about. And I really liked that. As someone who really loves 40K too, I think they immediately, at least in the demo mission they show off, it seems to be mid-campaign because it is contextless. You're just like, you're given Titus, the main character, and like his companions and his little squad, but they're already talking about things that are ongoing. There was no setup. So it just seems to be mid-campaign. The one thing that I really liked is that they show just like how oppressively evil the people you are playing as are. Space Marines sound like they'd be heroic, and they are heroic in their own terms. But like as you're walking through the little area in the beginning, you can see like executions going on in the background of like people accused of cowardice by a commissar. It's like they definitely know what they're showing, and they show it off very well. And I love the graphical quality of everything, and gameplay was super tight. It's a lot like the first game, but I would say, just like some more modern flourishes in there. So it is arcadey. You just like shoot stuff. And then when you don't want to shoot, you bring out a melee weapon and start slashing. And there's a dodge, and there's a parry, and there's things you can't dodge and certain things you can dodge as well. It's It's very cool. On a technical level, though, there's a lot that I liked. I think it ran fine in the parts where I was playing for the most part, but it had issues that I've come to see in a lot of games that I hope they aren't there for launch. Frame times did seem spiky when walking through the level and when nothing was occurring. It's just like you walking through after having cleared a little area, and then you walk forward, and then there could be like a big frame time spike moving into the next area. Another thing that I saw, so that was pretty much like all throughout the areas I played.
So a traversal stutter.
As I will call it. Yeah. Traversal stutter. That's what it appeared to be, but I didn't have the ability to play this multiple times to check if it was a shader compilation. But there were moments where I'm pretty sure I did say shader compilation stutter. There was what appeared to be a shader compilation burn before everything started, right when I got in the mission. But for example, like that execution scene I talked about earlier, if you sit there and wait when the las guns fire for the first time, shader comp stutter when you see the muzzle flash for the first time. Usually that does say that this is a shader comp issue. And stuff like that, like the first time an explosion occurred, I'm pretty sure I saw it a couple times. They're just things that where it didn't feel like the frame rate was 4K 60, and it seemed to be achieving that on a CPU and GPU perspective, even at 4K native, but it seems like the frame times weren't great. And I hope that isn't there in the launch. Maybe this has to do with the fact that it was a demo, or, a demo of just a select mission of the single player campaign. I did not play the multiplayer stuff, but that was more concerning, and I hope that it isn't there for launch. Otherwise, we aren't talking about the things the game does really well in regards to this PC port, but we're instead talking about, this. And I don't want to
oversights.
I don't want to be talking about that. I'd rather be talking about positive things.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Alex. On the one hand, this is unfinished beta code. On the other hand, if we highlight the issue now and say it's a problem, then hopefully it will be addressed by the time we actually come around to reviewing it. Which is, basically what I would describe as positive, / constructive feedback to actually improve the flow of the game. I played it. I loved it. I thought it was really, really impressive. But yes, I noticed those hitches as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes me curious too about the console versions. Because
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I'm curious. I assume it's going to target 60 on console as well, which would be impressive, actually, given what I'm seeing. It just looks impressive.
Sure.
But I'm curious about all those other things, like the frame time issues I mentioned, as well as the potential resolution, because it's unoptimized, not complete code, but it's like
it's demanding.
It was demanding, to say the least. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We were provided with some footage that I did look through in quite some detail here. And I don't know if that's console footage. It could be console footage. It's running at 1080p. Internally, I counted the number of shots that'll come out to 1080p. Looks like it's being upscaled to maybe 1440p, just judging by eye. It kind of looks like it's maybe in that range, possibly. But in terms of performance, there were a lot of issues with that code that I think are more severe than what you're noting on PC. And there's some issues with like the animations, like at 114 in the footage, the guy who's swinging his sword and executing this guy, or calling on the execution for the las guns to fire. That's running at like 20 FPS, 20 hertz, his little animation there, like it's not being interpolated correctly. And then at like 221 in that footage, there's an alien that's like he's animating on every frame, but he's only moving forward on some frames. It looks very bizarre. So there are all kinds of issues like that. Plus the general performance level, I didn't put it through our tools, but subjectively by eye, it's often in the 40s. It looks like it's not running too well.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm thinking that maybe that is representative possibly of the console experience. You do have the Xbox button icons, which don't really, could indicate PC, could indicate consoles. We don't really know. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that judging from that footage and judging from your impressions of the PC code, performance could be a major concern, especially when it comes to those stutters, because like you always say, there's no real way to get past those. Ultimately, with the modern technology, you're just not going to power past those. So I'd hope on consoles, it's a better experience than what we're seeing here. I'd certainly hope for a 30 FPS mode, if nothing else. At least there's great motion blur. There's fantastic motion blur. But what I would say about this game is, like you said, Alex, the scale is quite extraordinary for a game of this visual scope. It reminds me a lot of kind of more swarm-based games, like almost like Exoprimal last year. Maybe not quite as big as that, but like it's doing really big things in terms of the number of enemies, in terms of the amount of variety and the crazy environments and all this stuff. That's certainly on another level.
We need to take a closer look at this, but demanding game. I'm just really curious to see how those console versions are going to check out, and it does look as though on PC, though, based on what we're playing on the preview code, there is at least the opportunity to power past most of the issues, apart from the various little bits of hitching we saw. But I'm still hugely excited about this. You play it, I'm not sure you can really see it in this campaign footage that we were given, or certainly to the extent of how we experienced it on high-end PC. But it's just like, it's packed. It's packed with detail everywhere. It's almost overwhelming, in fact. It's just astonishing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the final thing.